Chapter 1. Welcome to Nowhere. The road had given up pretending to be normal 20 minutes ago. Zach Moreno watched it slither ahead through the windshield. A narrow vein of gravel carved into a forest so dense and dark it seemed to swallow the daylight. Pine trees, gnarled and reaching, flanked both sides of the bus, their branches clawing at the sky like they wanted to pull it down over the world. The sunlight barely made it through anymore, only pale streaks and dim patches lighting up bits of underbrush or a sagging wooden fence half-eaten by moss. He leaned his head against the window. The glass buzzed faintly with the vibration of the wheels, and every time the bus jostled over a rock, it made his teeth knock together. He hated buses. He hated summer camps more. Zach glanced down at his phone. No signal. Again. Still. Not even a ghost of a bar. The time read 3:44 p.m., the same time it had read 15 minutes ago. He squinted, waiting for the numbers to tick over. They didn't. That little spinning wheel in the corner kept turning like it was searching for something that didn't exist anymore. A tower. A satellite. A world outside this one. Zach turned off the screen and shoved the phone into his hoodie pocket with a sigh. The other kids on the bus weren't helping. No one talked. Not a whisper, not a laugh, no gum snapping, no bad jokes, no bragging about what they were going to do when they got there. Just stillness. Zach turned slowly in his seat, trying not to look too obvious. Across the aisle, a blonde boy with perfect posture sat ramrod straight, staring ahead with unblinking intensity. His hands rested on his knees like he'd been placed there. Behind him, two girls sat shoulder to shoulder, their heads tilted together, but neither said a word. One of them was mouthing something silently to herself, over and over again. Her lips barely moved. In the seat directly behind Zach, someone was scribbling something furiously, pen on paper, a constant scratch, scratch, scratch that made the hairs on the back of his neck twitch. He peeked. A girl with long black hair and a faded purple hoodie was hunched over a tiny notebook, her face hidden. She flipped pages too fast to be reading anything. He tried to smile at her. She didn't look up. Up front, the bus driver was still just driving. No announcements. No map. Not even a rear-view glance. "Hey," Zach said. "Just to see." No response. "Excuse me?" The driver didn't flinch. Didn't adjust the mirror. Didn't even blink. Zach's voice shriveled in his throat. He turned back to the window. That's when he noticed it. The forest outside the window was repeating itself. Not just the same kind of trees, the exact same ones. A crooked pine with 3 twisted branches, a split-trunk oak with a strange red slash in its bark, a rock shaped like a duck wearing a crown of moss. Then again. He checked the other side of the bus. Same trees, same rock, same everything. It wasn't just déjà vu. It was like someone was looping the scenery. He reached into his backpack, pulled out his notebook, and wrote, "If this turns into a horror movie, I want it on record that I called it first." Then, underneath, forest is on repeat. Bus driver equals mute. Kids equals step forward. He paused, then added, "Escape plan 1 wait. 2 don't die." The air on the bus changed. He could feel it, like the pressure had dropped. A hush, heavier than the silence that had already filled the space, crept in and settled on his shoulders, like the bus had passed through some invisible curtain. The girl behind him stopped writing. Every kid on the bus turned their head, slowly, exactly in sync, and looked out their windows. All at once. Zach turned to look too. They were passing through an old gate. A rusted metal arch stretched above the path, twisted with vines and hanging moss. Wooden letters dangled from wire hooks. Camp Nevermore, where memories last forever. Beneath it, a gravel lot opened up into a strange clearing. The cabins looked like something out of an old cartoon. Log walls, triangle roofs, dark windows like empty eyes. A faded banner hung over the mess hall porch. "Welcome, campers." but the font looked like it hadn't been used in 50 years.
Zach blinked.
A warm breeze rolled through the cracked windows and brought with it a smell like damp wood, lemon cleaner, and something else. Old paper. Like a library full of forgotten books. The bus hissed and groaned to a stop. No one moved. Then, from the center of the clearing, a man stepped forward. Tan shirt, green shorts, perfect posture, and a whistle hanging from his neck like a badge of honor. His grin was so wide it nearly touched his ears. His teeth were too white. Campers, he called, voice echoing across the lot like it had been waiting all summer to escape. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Counselor Reed, your guide to unforgettable adventures, lifelong friendships, and memories that stick. The other kids began to stand, grabbing their bags with practice movements. Zach stayed seated. He could feel it in his gut. That smile, that slogan, that smell. Something was wrong with this place, and he hadn't even stepped off the bus yet. The second Zach's sneaker hit the gravel, he felt it. That wrongness wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was real. It was underfoot. The crunch of rock didn't echo the way it should have. The air had a kind of weight to it, like it was being held in place. Even the sunlight felt forced, like a movie set where someone had dimmed the stage lights one notch too low. He stood near the back of the camper line as they unloaded. The blonde boy from the bus stepped down ahead of him, looking up at the main lodge with a weird sort of blank admiration, like it was a cathedral. Two girls walked past in perfect silence, not even glancing at the cabins. Zach looked over at the nearest building. The sign above the door read Cabin 3, and the wood was peeling like old sunburn. Moss grew along the side in fuzzy streaks. The window panes were clouded with dust on the inside. A wind chime made of rusty keys hung from a crooked nail on the porch beam. Don't be shy now. Counselor Reed called from the center of the clearing, clapping his hands once. Loud and sharp, like a starter pistol. Line up, single file. Let's make it snappy, campers. Zach moved forward slowly, his duffel bag bumping against his hip. As he stepped closer to Reed, the counselor extended a hand like he was about to shake it, then just kept holding it out, motionless, that same grin pinned to his face like it had been stapled there. Zach blinked. Hi. Reed's head tilted slightly, bird-like. Zachary Moreno. Yes, indeed. Cabin 3, bottom bunk, bed 4. You'll love it. Full of character. He winked, which didn't make Zach feel better. How do you know my... Oh, we know all our campers, Zach. Reed leaned closer. His breath smelled like peppermint and chalk. We remember everyone who comes to Camp Nevermore. Before Zach could respond, Reed clapped again. Next, Zach backed away, Reed's grin still burning in the back of his skull, and made his way toward Cabin 3. A loud thud echoed inside the cabin just as he reached the door. Please don't be rats, Zach muttered. He opened the door. The cabin was dim and smelled like wet blankets and floor polish. For bunk beds, ancient and wobbly, lined the walls. The ceiling had cobwebs thick enough to swing from. One corner had a water stain shaped almost exactly like a hand. On the lower bunk near the back, a kid was lying upside down, legs up the wall, head dangling off the edge like a bat. He wore thick glasses, a NASA hoodie, and socks with tiny cartoon cats eating tacos. You Zach? The kid asked, without turning his head upright. Zach stopped in the doorway. Yeah. And you're a goblin, I guess? The kid flipped upright with surprising speed and stuck out a hand. Jules. Jules Avery. I snore. I talk in my sleep. And I probably won't make it through the week without uncovering a horrifying secret. Just giving you a heads up. Zach shook his hand slowly. Right. Good to know. Jules grinned. Cabin 3, huh? The haunted one. Classic. That's how you know it's legit. I thought this place was all rustic charm and outdoor fun. Oh, it is, Jules said. Right up until the fun tries to eat your face. Zach raised an eyebrow. Jules flopped back on the bunk. You knew, huh? Let me guess. Parents split up recently. Mom said you needed fresh air. Dad told you to toughen up. Zach froze. Don't look so shocked, Jules said, folding his arms behind his head. It's basically Camp Nevermore's full business model. Lost kids, weird forest, mysterious counselors. I've got a theory it's some kind of MK Ultra spinoff. Zach dropped his bag on the floor. Okay, I'm officially worried. Jules laughed. Good. That means your brain still works. Zach turned toward his bunk. Scratched into the wooden slats above it were names, dates, messages. Corey B., 1988. Tina was here. Get out, get out, get out. And just above his pillow, scrawled so faintly he almost missed it. Zach M., 1974. He blinked. That couldn't be right. Could it? Hey, Jules, he said quietly. Has anyone else here ever had the same name as a previous camper? Jules tilted his head. Sure. Probably. This place has been running forever. Why? No reason, Zach said. Outside, the wind picked up. The chimes made of keys clinked softly against each other, then stopped, as if something had caught them mid-swing. Zach knelt beside his bunk, dragging his duffel bag out from where he'd dropped it. The floor creaked beneath him, loud enough to wake the dead, or at least the more nervous rodents. He unzipped the bag and started unpacking. Hoodie, flashlight, a book he wasn't planning to read, and the peanut butter crackers his mom had insisted he bring, just in case the food is terrible. He glanced around. Something about the cabin was wrong. Not gross wrong. Not unsafe wrong. Just subtly tilted. Every corner felt slightly too sharp, every wall a little too close. The ceiling seemed lower than it should have been when he stood, but now sitting, it felt miles away. The dimensions didn't add up. Hey, Jules, he said. Has this cabin always been this warped? Jules was sitting on his top bunk now, legs dangling, flipping through a tiny spiral-bound notebook filled with messy handwriting and stick-figure drawings. Oh, yeah, Jules said without looking up. Cabin 3's got structural personality, like a haunted funhouse with termites. Zach ran a hand along the wall behind his bed. More carvings. Some were names, old, faded, done with knives or nails. Others were messages. Still here. Don't close your eyes. They take you when you sleep. Help, and then scratched over with ha ha ha. Zach's fingers brushed across one that had been burned into the wood with a lighter or match. You can't wake up if you never slept. He pulled his hand back. Okay, but doesn't any of this bother you? He asked. The creepy messages, the silent bus, the antler thing in the woods? Paft. You saw that too, huh? Jules said, looking way too casual about it. Could have been an echo, or maybe the deer walker. Depends on the day. Zach stared at him. Echo? Deer walker. You know how every place has stories? Jules said, urban legends, right? But Camp Nevermore doesn't have stories. It makes them. Like it's a story factory, pumping out nightmares like a haunted assembly line. Zach stood slowly. Okay, either you're messing with me or you're insane. Which is it? Jules grinned and tapped his temple. What makes you think those are different? A knock came at the door. Both boys froze. It wasn't the kind of knock that said, hey, let's go roast marshmallows. It was soft, hesitant, like whoever or whatever was out there didn't want to be heard. Zach looked at Jules. Jules shrugged. Another knock. Zach took a step forward. Then another. He reached for the doorknob and opened it a crack. No one. He stepped outside. The porch was empty. The key chimes were still swaying just slightly. The sun had dipped lower, painting the sky in bruised purples and dusky oranges. The forest loomed just beyond the fire pit, quiet as ever. Then he saw it. Tied to the porch railing with red string was a single slip of paper. He untied it, unfolded it. It read, in smudged pencil, "Don't drink the lemonade." What the? Zach muttered. Behind him, Jules peeked over his shoulder. Huh. New one. You've seen these before? Oh yeah. Cabin notes. They show up sometimes. Like little warnings from the camp itself. Or other campers trying to help. Zach turned the paper over. The back was blank. Is this a prank? No, Jules said cheerfully. But if you do drink the lemonade tomorrow, I'd like to record what happens. Zach sighed and stepped back into the cabin. He was already wondering how fast his mom could get a refund. The first night at Camp Nevermore didn't feel like a first night. It felt like the middle of something that had already gone terribly wrong. Zach lay on his lower bunk, arms folded behind his head, eyes locked on the ceiling. Somewhere above, Jules was already snoring, softly, rhythmically, like he'd slipped into sleep without a care in the world. Zach hadn't even gotten close. The sounds of the camp had faded by the time the last dull orange light vanished from the sky. No owls, no bugs, not even the distant murmur of other kids sneaking around or whispering across bunks. Just a thick, unnatural quiet that pressed in from every side. The cabin creaked, once then again, as if something heavy had shifted its weight overhead. Zach rolled onto his side, trying to ignore it. Creak. Again. Only this time it wasn't the ceiling. It was the porch. The steps. Zach's breath caught. He sat up slowly. Very slowly. He reached for the flashlight he'd stashed under his pillow, then stopped. What if it saw the light? The sound came again, with groaning under something that wasn't trying to be quiet anymore. Zach swung his legs over the edge of the bed. The floorboards under his bare feet were ice cold. He tiptoed to the nearest window, pulling aside the dusty curtain just enough to peer through the glass. At first, he saw only trees. The clearing beyond the cabins was empty. The mess hall, across the way, stood in darkness like a sleeping mouth. The gravel path was still, the campfire pit cold. But then, movement, just beyond the tree line, half shrouded in shadow. A figure, tall, too tall. Its shoulders hunched slightly forward, but even slouched, it loomed over the lower branches. It moved with a sort of floating smoothness, as if walking didn't quite apply to it. The legs were long, jointed wrong. It had arms, thin and stick-like, hanging past its knees, and on its head antlers, wide, branchy antlers that scraped against the trees as it stepped into the clearing. Zach froze. The creature didn't move like it was lost. It moved like it had been here before. It stopped directly in front of cabin 3. Did it see him? Could it see? It tilted its head upward. Zach's breath locked in his chest. He couldn't move, couldn't blink. The thing had no face, no eyes, no mouth, just blank. Gray skin stretched tight across a featureless skull, like it hadn't finished becoming what it was supposed to be. And then it lifted one arm and raised a finger, not toward the cabin, toward him, directly at the window. Zach stumbled back from the glass. The cabin door creaked, just a little. The sound of a single step on old wood. Then silence. Total, complete silence. Zach didn't breathe, didn't move. He stood frozen in the dark, every muscle tense, staring at the window. The key chimes outside didn't make a sound, but he could feel it. Something was still out there, watching. Zach stood completely still, the cold from the floor seeping up into his knees. The figure was gone. One blink. That was all it took. One heartbeat too long, and the thing had vanished from the clearing. Not walked away. Not retreated into the trees. Just gone. The window showed nothing now. Only the silhouettes of sleeping cabins and the silent outlines of pines waving slightly in the breeze. But the air had shifted again. He could feel it. Heavy. Pressurized. Like something was holding its breath just outside the wall. Zach backed away from the window, careful not to make a sound. He turned to glance at Jules, still asleep, snoring lightly, arms draped off the side of the bunk. Zach wanted to wake him. He didn't. He wasn't sure why. He crept to the door, just to check the lock. to make sure. His fingers trembled as he reached for the knob. Scritch, a dragging sound from outside. Not the porch this time. The back wall, with scraping against wood. Zach froze. Scritch, scritch, tap. Something was walking around the outside of the cabin, slowly, testing the walls, dragging something sharp. He moved to the back corner, crouching low. The moonlight coming through the grimy window behind him cast pale streaks across the floor. A shadow passed by. No footsteps, just a long, silent shape gliding past the window like smoke with legs. Zach squeezed his eyes shut, then opened them again. Still there, just beyond the glass. Slower now, closer. He dropped to his hands and knees and crawled back toward his bunk, his heart hammering in his ears. Something whispered, so faint it might have just been breath through the boards. Zach. He stopped crawling. Zach. It didn't sound angry. It sounded familiar, curious, like someone trying on his name for the first time. From his bedpost, something swung and tapped against the frame. The paper, the note. Don't drink the lemonade. It was spinning slightly now, as if stirred by a breeze that wasn't there. Zach backed up against the wall, one hand covering his mouth. A sudden tap at the window. He jumped, spun around. A finger was pressed against the glass. Long-knuckled, gray, and behind it no face. Just that smooth skin. And those antlers, curling like tree branches, scraping against the roof as it leaned in. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then all at once stark. Pitch black. The only sound left in the world was the sound of the keys outside. Clinking once. Twice. Then silence. End of chapter 1.